Are you a former Yu-Gi-Oh player that fondly remembers the anime that aired in 2002? Have you heard that a new Blue Eyes White Dragon structure deck is releasing on store shelves today? Are you prepared to purchase those and potentially get back into the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game? Stop. Before you go any further, listen to this public service announcement. The offices of Stratos and Shadow Mist want you to hear this incredibly important message. Do not, under any circumstances, purchase the Saga of Blue Eyes White Dragon structure. If you go to Target and you see a box that looks like this, got two little dragons on the front, that's not the one you want. It may look modern, but this deck is in fact over a decade old and insufficient to compete with the modern metagame. Instead, look for this one, with a white woman on the cover, Blue Eyes White Destiny. Keep in mind, Destiny is the bestiny, Saga is worth nada. And if you believe you've purchased the wrong deck, please contact the law offices of Stratos and Shadow Mist Dark Lawyers immediately. We haven't won a case yet, but we're confident we will once the fucking Bistials leave the format. Good afternoon, jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Well, it's finally time. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you're celebrating with someone, but if you aren't, boy, do I have a white woman for you. Presenting the Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Take flight, Blue Eyes White Dragon, rise! Go, White Lightning Attack!
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is a one-stop shop for all things Yu-Gi-Oh! They're responsible for the pack opener that makes series like Progression possible. They've got strategy articles for those looking to flesh out their fundamentals. They're the most complete repository of deck lists and results from regionals and YCSs online. And they've also got cube and draft infrastructure that's finally seeing use now that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have come to the light of Limited. There's a good chance that any Yu-Gi-Oh! Content you see on YouTube has Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck's many tendrils somewhere within its DNA. So why not go to the source and improve your game, draft with friends, or just see what 11-year-olds are playing in their Blue Eyes decks this month. Head on over to YGOPRODECK.com. Now back to the video. With that, let's get abreast of Blue Eyes. The Blue Eyes White Dragon is unquestionably Yu-Gi-Oh's most iconic monster, which is why it might shock you to hear that it's also one of its least playable of all time. I made a video a few months back cataloging all the times this card has ever seen metagame relevance, and spoiler, it isn't often. However, it also isn't never. Blue Eyes' biggest role in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is as a fail-safe, a break glass in case of nostalgia depletion, available to Konami anytime they start seeing Yugi boomers becoming Yugi Gen Xers and going off to Lorcana or the Lestrals or V-Card. As a result, this archetype has received legacy support a dozen times and remains modernized enough that just a few well-placed monsters could catapult it from unplayable mess to third best deck status. And, well, here we are. Blue Eyes White Manifest Destiny has officially been released, and it couldn't have come at a better time. The top two decks, Ryziel and Malice, are incredibly consistent and repeatable, but not Tearlament level powerful. The new support debuts at about the same time as the Primite cards, an independently strong series of spells and one guy that boosts the power of normal monsters. And finally, Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit follows in the footsteps of her 2016 predecessor as a completely cynical boss for its time. In a format full of Malice and Bistials, it has a banish lock. They even gave him a link that searches the field spell. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, the Blue Eyes. We are playing 2 of the White Dragon and 3 copies of the newly released Maiden in White. This card can be sent from the hand or field to the graveyard to put a true light from your hand, deck, or graveyard face up in your spell and trap zone. If you special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, and when a card or effect is activated that targets this card on the field, or if this card is targeted for an attack, you can special summon a Blue Eyes or a level 1 Light Tuner from your graveyard. Importantly, your opponent doesn't have to do the targeting, which means that should you target this card, it will extend for you, something that will become very important very soon. Let's look at the card that she searches, the True Light. This is a little old, and it functions kind of like Eternal Soul. Prevents your Blue Eyes White Dragons from being targeted with card effects, and if it's sent to the graveyard, destroys all monsters you control. Once per turn, you can either special a Blue Eyes from your hand to graveyard, or set a spell trap that specifically lists the Blue Eyes White Dragon in its text with a different name than the cards you control and have in your graveyard. Let's look at those now. We've got 3 copies of Wishes for Eyes of Blue, which functionally doesn't have text. This card reads, send an Ash Blossom from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. Discard a card, add a level 1 Light Tuner and a spell trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your hand, except for prayers. That would be Wishes if the naming convention was consistent on Edo Pro. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a Blue Eyes White Dragon and equip a Blue Eyes from your extra deck to it as an equip spell that gives it 400 attack. Importantly, that's necessary for the summoning condition on Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon in the extra deck, who can be summoned by tributing a Blue Eyes White Dragon that's equipped with a fusion monster. Here, Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, because why not? Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons can special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck, graveyard, or banishment in defense position, but you can only special summon it if you do not control it, and you are locked from the extra for the rest of the turn, but for dragons. It can be banished from the graveyard to perform a fusion summon using monsters from your hand or field, including a Blue Eyes monster. Finally, we're playing Mausoleum of White, which allows you to normal summon a level 1 light tuner in addition to your normal summoner set, and once per turn allows you to target a face-up monster you control, and send a normal monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard to increase that monster's attack. That card can be searched with the Link 1 Spirit with Eyes of Blue, which can be made with one level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster, prevents you from special summoning outside of dragons, and, if this card is Link summoned, takes a Mausoleum of White from your deck and either adds it to your hand or sends it to the graveyard. This card can be tributed to special Blue Eyes from your hand or graveyard, but if you special summon an effect monster from the graveyard, it can't attack, and its effects are negated. Finally, we round out the Blue Eyes lineup with 3 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue, still as powerful as ever. We've got a Pot of Prosperity and 1 copy of Majesty with Dragons of White, an extremely searchable trap card, which allows you to show up to 3 Blue Eyes from your hand, face-up field, or graveyard, then destroy that many cards your opponent controls. It can be banished to perform a ritual summon, but thankfully we aren't playing any of those. After that, we've got the Primites. We're playing 3 copies of Ether Barrel, which if normaled can set a Primite spell trap from your deck, and can be tributed to send a normal monster from your deck to the graveyard. During your standby phase, if you have a normal monster in your field or graveyard, it can be added from the graveyard to the hand. Ugh, the errata. We hardly knew ye. 3 copies of Lordly Load, and I'll just apologize in advance to the budget conscious among you. There are other ways to build this deck. I believe this is the most powerful, and it does necessitate a playset of this. At the time of recording, $70 card. When this card is activated, you can add a Primite from your deck to your hand, except for Lordly Load, declare a normal monster, and special summon the declared normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Also, you can't activate the effects of special summoned monsters on the field this turn. Now, that is a very specific condition, which permits you to continue extending with Maiden of White past the point that you've activated this effect. Finally, we've got 1 copy of Primite Drill Beam, which allows you to reveal a Primite or a normal monster, and then target a face-up card on the field, negate its effects. If you do, banish it. During your main phase, if you control a Primite, you can set it from your graveyard. For non-engine, we're on 3 Fuelos, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Nibiru, 1 apiece of the good Bestials, and 3 Infip. In the extra, we're on the aforementioned Spirits with the Eyes of Blue. Hieratic Seal does a lot of heavy lifting. SP Little Knight and Elena are in here as well. We've got Mirrorlogic Aggregator to send, and Typhon, of course, to, just do Typhon stuff. Theoretically, you could summon Mirrorlogic Aggregator in this deck, which is very funny. We've got Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, double Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, of course, can tag into said Moonlight. Lightstorm Dragon, newly released card, by the way. If this card is special summoned, you can target spells, traps on the field up to the number of normal monsters in your graveyard +1, destroy them. Kind of cool, because this deck otherwise doesn't really have super efficient spell and trap removal. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a spell trap in your graveyard, set it, but it can't be activated unless you control a normal monster. Kind of not exactly what you want to see for a card like True Light, which would be summoning back the normal monster, but we'll take it anyway. Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. This is 2 tuners and 1 non-tuner Blue Eyes monster. Prevents your opponent from banishing cards from your graveyard, and when a card or effect is activated on the field, can be negated. If you do, this card gains 1,000 attack until the end of the turn, and if destroyed by battle or card effect, can special summon a light dragon from your graveyard except itself. Outside of that, we are playing 3 copies of Lancia, 3 copies of Meows, 3 Ultimate Slayer, 3 Evenly Matched, and 3 Solemn Strike. Let's check out some games. Our first match is up against Fiendsmith Ryziel. That's right, first match, Fiendsmith Ryziel. Get excited. This game basically just shows how this deck performs on the play. We are going first, and we'll begin with a copy of Lordly Load. Our opponent has 1 piece of non-engine, but thankfully we can play through it. We'll go Ether Barrel to set a copy of Drill Beam into a Spirit with Eyes of Blue, which gets Veilered. That's probably the right position to use that card, but of course we can activate the effect of the Maiden in White in order to set a True Light. From here we can go Lordly Load in order to summon a Blue Eyes, then afterwards we can activate the graveyard effect of Maiden in White, and Synchro off for a Spirit Dragon. True Light can set a spell trap, and we will select Wishes with Eyes of Blue. Let's send that dead Fuelos to the graveyard, set a copy of Majesty, and get an effect Veiler before passing back to our opponent. They're going to begin with a copy of Engreva. That's going to grab them a Tract. Tract effect here to grab Lurie, pitch the Lurie, and summon the Lurie from the graveyard. From this position, they can link off into a Requiem. Requiem effect to grab a copy of Lacrima, and Lacrima in order to send from deck to graveyard a second copy of Engraver. Engraver here is going to get checked by the Spirit Dragon, at which point our opponent's going to fire off a Bonfire. Scary. They're going to go for Ext, then normal summon a copy of Ice. Ice is going to grab Sword. They'll activate the effect of the Sword, and I think I can stop this. We'll go Veiler targeting the Sword here. We're then going to go Majesty with Dragons of white, we will reveal enough to pop 2 monsters, forcing the X'd out from them. They're going to go Aggregator, but we can chain the effect of Spirit Dragon and chain the effect of Primite Drill Beam to banish the X'd Ryziel. We will go into an ultimate Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon and activate the effect of the True Light to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon, popping our ultimate at end step and getting back the Spirit Dragon. This should be all she wrote, even through this effect Veiler. We'll grab back this copy of Primite Dragon Ether Barrel and activate the effect of Wishes to equip and then go into Tyrant. Well, it's a normal summon the Ether Barrel that gets eaten by the effect Veiler. No big deal. This should be enough regardless. We'll walk over the Lacrima. They'll go for the Lacrima in Graveyard, but again, that Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon negate really checks all these Fiendsmith nonsense. We'll go 34, activate the effect of the Tyrant in order to reset this copy of Majesty, direct with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, and then True Light to summon back a Blue Eyes White Dragon from hand, getting in for a lethal. I do want to highlight that was a pretty reasonable hand from that Fiendsmith Ryziel player, maybe a little engine heavy, but it was nice that we not only were able to play through it, we felt in control the entire time. This time, however, we are going second, and our opponent is playing White Forest Azamina. This is a deck that totally perplexes me. It has the ability to do so much and so little, depending on not only how they have built their deck, but also what they have access to over the course of a turn. We've opened exactly 2 pieces of non-engine, the Druis Worm and the Imperm. We're going to fire the Imperm on the Diabellstar, but as you can see in the hand, that's not going to be enough. They're going to go for Sylvie here. Sylvie is going to grab a copy of Tails, and Tails, of course, can go ahead and grab, I love this card, the one, the only LZ. They'll activate the effect of LZ, and then go into a Murcielago. Mercy me, that's going to grab a copy of Wanted. They'll go Hallowed Azamina 1 and just send that Illa Sylvia to the graveyard. Afterwards, they will go ahead and cycle back the Hallowed Azamina to go into the Fiendsmith line here. Requiem into Lacrima effect in order to send an Engraver, and afterwards Engraver effect targeting Moon of the Closed Heaven. We will go ahead and Druis Worm here. Feels pretty good, and they let it go, neglecting to Illa Sylvia here because they're going to use it as material for Chaos Angel. That said, Chaos Angel is very beatable from our position. We can Drill Beam the Chaos Angel, but they do get off that Black Goat Laughs Calling Maiden of White, which is a little annoying. We'll go Ether Barrel here in order to set a Lordly Load. They're going to go Requiem in order to go into a Lacrima, so we are going to have to contend with the graveyard effect of the Fiendsmith in Paradise, but not too big of a deal. Let's go Lordly Load here, then we'll go Drill Beam to set it back to our side of the field into a Spirit with Eyes of Blue. They will Paradise to remove it from the field, which is not too big of a deal. We already got the Surge. Down he goes. We'll activate Mausoleum of White. Let's go Maiden in White, and guess what? We can actually still activate its effect. Black Goat Laughs doesn't exactly work like that. We're going to go Wishes, and thankfully it resolves. It would have been really devastating if it didn't, but from here we can just go Sage in order to grab an effect Veiler, go for Roar in order to summon out a Blue Eyes White Dragon, go for Maiden in order to summon it to our side of the field, and then Synchro off for a Spirit Dragon into another Spirit. From here we can go Mausoleum of White and Spirit in order to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon, activate Wishes to equip, and then make a copy of Tyrant Dragon. Let's go to the battle phase and walk over. We'll go direct with the Tyrant Dragon, then activate its effect, resetting the Imperm. God, even when we don't get to the trap, there's good stuff to get back. Finally, we'll go into a Seal at end step because Tyrant doesn't really do anything from this position. Our opponent's going to go LZ. That's going to be met with a True Light. They will infip this copy of Hieratic Seals. Probably still worth to use Hieratic Seals to reset this Lordly Load and go for Blue Eyes White Dragon from grave here. Afterwards, we'll go for the Seals and the Maiden of White. We'll summon the Maiden to our side of the field and summon a Magnamut, which can get us dragons should we get to the next turn. They're going to go Sylvie here. We will Drill Beam in order to go ahead and banish that sucker, and they will scoop it up. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent is on Malice, and God, I love this list. They're maxed out on Bestials, and they have main deck Metal Tronus. We've drawn pretty well. We have 2 Infips and a Nibiru, which I'm not going to complain about. I could do with a little more engine, but we'll see. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of White Rabbit. That White Rabbit is going to get from deck, unsurprisingly, a copy of TB11. From this position, they're going to make a Link Decoder really early and use the Druis Worm as an extender, which allows them to bring back the White Rabbit and then perform a Link Summon into a Red Ransom. Going for the Red Ransom line is interesting here. It means they're going to be susceptible to a couple of things. We're going to fire off this copy of Infip targeting the SP Little Knight. Now, this is a complete misplay unless we have Nibiru in our hand, because of course they can always just use the Underground to bring back the Red Ransom and banish the Chessie Cat they would banish anyway. That said, our opponent probably should have been able to sniff it out based on our play, but I'm not complaining because we've got a Nibiru and they've got a token and nothing going. All right, well, let's begin with a copy of Maiden of White. We're going to set a True Light, then we'll go for the Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragon to bring out the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Let's go Maiden of White to bring it back to our side of the field into a Spirit Dragon into a True Light. Let's go ahead and set a copy of Wishes with Eyes of Blue, and it's a little bit of a pipe dream, but thank goodness it resolves. From here, we'll go to the battle phase. We'll activate Druis Worm in battle, and they will Chain Metal Tronus, targeting our Spirit Dragon. That's really rough because it means our Spirit Dragon is not only negated, they're able to use their Druis Worm. They get off Metal Tronus to eat our Druis Worm. From here, we have to go Sage with Eyes of Blue into an effect Veiler, and then we'll go Spirit with Eyes of Blue to get a Mausoleum. Now, Mausoleum isn't just a fun way to proc cards, it's also double summon. We will use its effect in order to send a Blue Eyes, and afterwards we can Sage in order to bring it back, and then use our double summon on on this Effect Veiler after just going ahead and equipping the Neo Blue Eyes Dragon for a little bit of targeting protection. Opponent's going to go for TB11 into a Dormouse here and then draw for turn. They'll go Metal Tronus off the top. Thankfully, we put the Neo Blue Eyes in graveyard for just such a thing. And then we will go into the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. As they go Dormouse, we can negate it. Hopefully, that's sufficient. They're going to go another Malice and Underground, but Majesty does check that pretty well. We'll reveal 2 and eat the entire board, at which point they'll concede. So it's time for game 2, and ooh, kind of a strange hand from both of us, I'm not going to lie. Our opponent's going to go Dormouse to lead. We will Effect Veiler and try and live the dream here. Sometimes this just ends their turn. Does not here. They have exactly 1 extender in the Gold Sarcophagus into a copy of White Rabbit. Now, looking at an Ash Blossom in my hand, I'm feeling really bad because from this position, this is going to do hot nothing. They go GWC here, which is scary as all hell. They'll go Haggard Lizardos into a copy of Dormouse into a White Binder. Doing this line, there's not a fantastic Ash Blossom. They're going to white for a copy of TB11. Then afterwards, they're going to fire the TB11. This is a fine Ash, but not perfect, because of course they can activate the White Binder effect in Banish, summon it back, go ahead and draw a card, and it's a Baldrake, which means they also get to end on a Firewall Dragon, which will be live once they pop the GWC. Truly, this card in the extra monster zone doesn't matter, because as soon as the GWC activates, we're cooked anyway. All right, let's go for Sage with Eyes of Blue. That goes into a Veiler. I guess we'll Typhon here. They're going to GWC into a White Binder, gain 23, then activate White Binder, banishing my last remaining card, and Firewall, looping back my Typhon. From this position, we will go a Maiden of White in main phase 2 to set True Light, which we can use to set a copy of Prayers. We'll activate the effect of Wishes and send a Blue Eyes to the graveyard, and then afterwards we will pass turn, hoping a Veiler and an Ash are enough to keep us alive. They're going to go White Binder here. We will Veiler it. I'm happy about that, at least. Then I see the access code Talker, and I realize we're just cooked. Access code Banish in order to bring out this copy of White Binder cooks us, regardless of the resolution of True Light, which is stopped by Dominus Impulse anyway. Awesome. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and ooh, this one's going to require a little bit of decision-making on my part. I hate doing that. We're going to begin with a copy of Lordly Load. We're going to grab a copy of Ether Barrel. We'll normal summon the Ether Barrel, and down comes Fuwalos. We don't have a response, which sucks. I think we're going to give them 2 draws here. We're going to go Lordly Load to summon out a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Then afterwards, we're going to activate the Maiden White in Graveyard. Thankfully, no Bestial to go into Spirit Dragon, which draws them another one. Unfortunately, that is a Bestial, so we are going to have to contend it, even though we shouldn't have to, because I would never play around it after 1 singular draw. We're going to go Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon here into Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Our opponent's going to normal summon a copy of Chessy Cat. We're going to negate that with Ultimate Spirit, and I'm just trying to get them stuck on guys, I think. Haggard Lizardos comes down. They're going to bring back the Chessy Cat, but no activation of the Chessy Cat. Great news for us. They're going to go Red Ransom here in order to grab the Mouse and Underground for a copy of White Rabbit, and here they are almost out of activations of Malice cards. They'll go White Rabbit, activate the effect of the TB11, banishing this copy of Red Ransom for a Chessy Cat, and then a Point of Resolution. I imagine what they're trying to do is start drawing. We're going to prevent that because they go Dormouse instead. That's every name. It's Nibiru time, baby. All the way to the graveyard. We'll give them a big-ass token, and they will pass turn, at which point we can True Light. This is just kind of what happens with Malice sometimes. They make a little greedy line, not playing around Nibiru fully, and they end up with just double Dormouse in hand, and a Gold Sarcophagus that can't extend because each special from Banish is once per turn. We, however, after getting our prayers predictably Ash Blossomed, can go Roar into Blue Eyes, into Maiden of White, into Tyrant Dragon from the equip, into Majesty in battle in order to pop the remaining cards on the field, get in for 34 and 3k. Woof, we made it out. So we're back with the deck, and yes, Malice is the use case for Ultimate, but it was still impressive. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, new support's great. The new Blue Eyes bridges the gaps between the dragons and the spellcasters in the archetype. The Link one allows you to turn any level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster into Blue Eyes access and Mausoleum access, which lets you normal summon another monster, which allows you to set up level 9 synchros really easily. Speaking of 2, Spirit Dragon is way better positioned than it was before. While its Floodgate effect doesn't come up very often, the Graveyard effect negate does. It decimates the Fiendsmith engine, and even some rogue decks like Fire King. Not only does the card manage to dodge Ext, but it now has a new target in Ultimate Spirit, a giant body with an anti-bestial lingering effect alongside the on-field Omni. It floats back into any Blue Eyes in Graveyard if destroyed, like Spirit's end phase effect. And 3, the engine is super flexible, super light, and super customizable. For example, you could add in the new Kaiser Seahorse for more extension and consistency, more Bestials depending on the format. You could swap for Breakers over Hand Traps if you think the format demands. The flexibility allows you to adapt as changes occur in the metagame, while also giving you a really good amount of non-engine space. Of course, in this build, we are using the Primites due to the heavy synergy of normal monster support and a Dragon engine. A Drill Beam is a repeatable piece of powerful interaction, which makes your low end boards threatening. It's fine seeing to go second because you get to break boards with it, and Barrow can link off for the Spirit Link one, but you have other options. And the cons. 1. Nibiru. So the existence and popularity of Nibiru is a problem. None of your engine can prevent a Nibiru. It forces you to play really low to the ground as a result. Heavy engine hands often don't get the opportunity to extend beyond a set Majesty and a Spirit Dragon. You can try and bait it out by attempting to go end phase with the Just Spirit, but the ever-looming threat of Nibiru kind of forces some of your OTK lines to even struggle through things like Druis Worm. The risk is always there. 2. Bestials are also an issue. A Majesty requires you to reveal boots from your hand, field, or graveyard, so having them banished lowers the impact of the card. They can also prevent a Maiden Summon from the graveyard, which locks you out of synchro plays. Druis Worm can really mess with your pushes for game, and Malice is running like 7 to 9 Bestials now, thanks Jib, which means you'll often try to play around them the best you can. Saga is the only way you can retrieve a Blue Eyes White Dragon that has been banished, though you do have a little bit of counterplay. You can chain True Light to a Bestial to blanket, but that means that if you have to use it for your combos, it's going to be devastating if it hits. While Ultimate Spirit does prevent your opponents from using their Bestials against you with its lingering effect, the Spirit Dragon specials it in defense, so your OTK lines will suffer if you make use of it. Not to mention, Metal Tronus on Spirit Dragon can get a Druis Worm. Terrible. And 3, Detonator and Binder are also kind of issues if you are going second. Your hand traps should hopefully prevent the top 2 decks from getting there, but when playing against Malice, Binder's graveyard banishes can completely end your turn and shut you out of your resource loop, and if they've gotten to MTP on top of that, the game's just over. Detonator can be shut down by your own Metal Tronus if you choose to play it, or something like an Ultimate Slayer, but without non-engine, your engines really struggle to establish anything into the live big boy of Ryziel. I hope the really expanded pros and cons here don't turn you off the deck. The only reason I'm spending this amount of time talking about Blue Eyes at all is because I'm convinced it is good, despite this stuff. Get ready to see the Ultimate Engine again. As a postscript, I do want to mention, I know the number one comment in the comment section here is going to be about price. I get it. But you can play other cards if you don't want to pay for Primite. Consider playing more non-engine, or playing a version similar to Bestial Control. You could instead play hand traps like Dominus Purge. You could play a trap-based variant with Jet Dragon in the deck. And honestly, if you really do like the deck a ton, it does kind of play well with Fiendsmith, if you'll foot the bill. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are completely funded by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid top dollar to be announced at the end of the 10-minute testings. Here are those people now for whom I am permanently indebted. About 99 Donuts, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ally, APK, Pearly Tier 0, Brett Henry, Cool Name, Damon O'Neill, Dark Rebel XYZ, Derpin Dragon, DJ Elefante, NB Adams, FPS Lord Derp, Garrett Ran, Hergalicious, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Lullaby of Souls, Master of Faster, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pombo, Project Mercury, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Serpentax, Shelby Piet, Sly Ninja 43, Soul CLG, Troy Says By Erasure Is Gay, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, and Yukika Zami. Couldn't have done it without you.